A few weeks ago, I uploaded a video to my channel about the first ever RuneScape player, Rab. After the video, I was lucky enough to get the opportunity to speak to Rab himself. For those who are not familiar with him, click the card in the corner for a little history lesson. As a quick summary, Rab was one of few hand-selected players who worked voluntarily as a Jagex moderator in the early days of RuneScape. He had close contact with Andrew Gower through it all, which meant he had a lot of insider information about how RuneScape was run in its first years. In the 6-hour chat I had with Rab, I learned a lot of interesting information that I'm hoping to share over the next few videos, starting with this one. I am, however, a sucker for gossip, and I like to start big. Right off the bat, we're going to tear off the top secret label and a piece of information that dates back all the way to 2003. The year when Jagex started using an incredibly sneaky marketing tool that has, over the past 2 decades, fooled millions of players. Until now. Hello RuneScape, Ulmisid here with a new video, and how is everyone doing? The past few weeks have been very interesting. For those of you who have been following my content for the past few months, thanks. You should know by now that I go all out on my research and fact checking. I'm never gonna make a video that's just me reading a page off the RuneScape wiki. I always make sure to reach out to sources and get you information you can't find anywhere else. That's going to be especially apparent today, specifically because you might find some of this hard to believe, and I don't blame you. Most of what you're seeing today is puzzled together from a lot of different pieces. They all seem to fit, but I've not had an outright confirmation. But I've not had a confirmation I'm wrong either. So feel free to draw your own conclusion on what you're about to see. Hey, it's a good thing to be skeptical of what you see online these days. All sources are linked in the description below if you want to do some further reading. Now with that out of the way, let's do some Sherlock level work, Scapers. 2003. RuneScape has been in its beta stage since its release in 2001, and the Gowers are already looking to revamp the game to a new version, RuneScape 2. Because of this, a lot of money is being invested in the form of new staff to help develop the game, and servers large enough to handle a massive influx in players alongside the steadily growing numbers the game is already seeing. Andrew wants the launch of RuneScape 2 to be huge. RuneScape 2 needs to be the biggest thing since, well, RuneScape. And in a time where most people just want to kill each other in the wilderness and most communication happens off-game in fan sites such as Tippet, there's still a few areas that RuneScape can improve in. Now, while RuneScape has been successful so far, Andrew Gower isn't exactly a billionaire. He has to be careful with how he spends the game's profits, and so, cost-saving measures are very appealing. As a result, he turns to the closest thing he has to a community manager, Rab. However, he also has the help of 2 new customer support members, Andrew Birmingham and, well, I don't want to spoil the surprise just yet, but let's just call this other member of staff Zed. By this point in time, Rab had left his voluntarily moderator position, but Andrew was a person who trusted very few people, so Rab seemed like the obvious person to reach out to. And sure enough, Rab agreed to help. He was the only person with experience as both a player and a moderator after all. Alongside the 2 new staff members, they all clubbed together to think up a cheap solution to incentivize player activity. Rab was the one to make the important observation. At this time in RuneScape, high scores were dominated by a select few individuals who were seen as insurmountable. Blue Rose was the best smith in the game, and LT Angel held a similar monopoly over late game crafting. Since no one thought they could beat them, there was little to no activity on the top of the high scores, something which would seem implausible today but very much a reality back then. So it's here that a new marketing idea is born: ModCoys. A portmanteau of moderator and decoy, which does most of the explaining for me. ModCoys were a series of accounts secretly owned by Jagex moderators to promote some healthy competition for their most elite players. After all, it'd be hard to outplay someone whose literal day job it was to grind the game. And for those who weren't close to the endgame, the ModCoys would act as a beacon of inspiration for them. After all, if these random players can come out of nowhere and overthrow rank 1 on the high scores, why can't I? So, Rab and the other customer support staff gave it a shot. While there's no way to tell how many modcoys there were in total, Rab believes there were only 5 of them or so, with most of the members of staff just using their pre-existing personal accounts as their modcoys rather than creating new ones. It would be kind of odd if several accounts that joined at the same time randomly took over the high scores. Unfortunately, the person running the modcoy had to be very dedicated to the game. Rab's interest in RuneScape was already waning, so having to grind extra hard in his modcoy burned him out even faster. The full-time J-mods could grind their accounts as part of their official working hours. Rab did not have that luxury. Sure, the modcoys could occasionally give themselves faster XP rates or use J-mod powers to help gear them up, but these still had to be used sparingly so that no one suspected foul play. Rab quit the game shortly after, and as he was not allowed to mention the existence of modcoys or the insane grind he had been taking part in, he resorted to jokey reasons for leaving, such as the grass being an ugly shade of green. Since Rab quit so early on, it's hard to say much about what Jagex thought about the use of them going forward, or whether they ever introduced more. However, right before Rab left, things looked promising. In the 4 months since they first had the idea, the average player was now spending about 25% longer in-game, and the high scores finally started seeing some real action towards the launch of RS2. Given the methods seemed effective, it seems likely that the use of modcoys continued, at least for a while. The only problem is, all of the J-mods from the original group have since stopped working at Jagex, so there's no way to get any concrete information about the project. Current J-mods wouldn't want to admit it existed, and that's if they even knew about it themselves. And our old elites have no idea what happened after they'd gone. I hate to say it, but we hit a dead end. Nah, I'm just kidding. If you look down below, you probably noticed we still have another 15 minutes to go through. Besides, I wouldn't give one of those old mods a cryptic name if it wasn't important, right? So yes, one of the original mods still work at Jagex, our J-mod number Z. And by now, I'm sure you figured out why I decided to call them that. So, let's bust the secret wide open. Because the Z stands for subscribe to— okay, I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself. The Z stands for Zesima. Okay, I know what you're thinking, and it rhymes with fuck off. But I wouldn't be making this video if I couldn't back myself up. So buckle up, grab some popcorn, change that dislike to a like down below, because the real video starts now.
If you've played RuneScape at any point in your career, you probably know of Zezim.
He is just an absolute legend. He did everything that was hard to do. He achieved the unthinkable.
Zezima is a legend, a myth. I think he doesn't exist.
What does he look like? Who is it? And if you could find that out, that would be truly cool.
So before we get into the who, I want to get into the why. Again, you're free to disagree with me, but you might just be surprised by how much makes sense. Looking at the history of Zesima's account, you can see Zesima started playing the game in mid-2001, but it wasn't until 2003 when Zesima started breaching the high scores. And it wasn't a gentle climb either. Zesima didn't start hitting those legendary XP rates until 2003, around the time that modcoy accounts became a thing. Don't you think it's a little odd that Zesima didn't really get going until Jagex secretly started making other accounts doing the same thing? Don't worry if you're not convinced yet, we're far from done. When RuneScape 2 was released, the runecrafting skill was released with it. However, despite this new and exciting skill hitting the game, Zesima vanished. Okay, sure, maybe he didn't want to train runecrafting, but to stop playing completely, right as the game had a huge upgrade? It seems odd that such a dedicated player wouldn't get their hands dirty. That is, unless the mod behind them was extremely busy dealing with the new players, game updates and various bugs that had come with it. There were more important things to worry about than playing on modcoys. But this hiatus didn't last long. As soon as the rank 1 player in runecrafting, Choppermad, reached Bodhi's favorite level, 73, Zesima came out of nowhere and overtook Choppermad in matter of days. Keep in mind this was old-style runecrafting from 2004, with XP rates far worse than what we have today, if you can even believe that. At a speed that not even the best RuneScape players had been able to match, Zesima zoomed past everyone to the coveted spot of rank 1. As quickly as he'd disappeared, he'd reclaimed his crown. Zesima would then actually hold this legendary status for several years. See, while the original idea of modcoys was to give the players someone to aspire to beat, Zesima had given the players someone to aspire to be. In 2005, when Slayer was released, the community was ecstatic over Zesima being the first to 99. They were happy to see him be number 1. And as everyone talked about the achievement, they also talked about the new member's skill. There's no way to know what Jagex's internal thoughts were from this time, but the player reception and resulting free marketing makes you think it was probably good. The idea remained sound until 2006, bordering on 2007, as RuneScape's popularity peaked. Jagex became far too busy to keep active with the player base. In the 2016 RuneScape documentary, Jagex explains the gap between the community and the moderators grew larger and larger, as they failed to properly interact with the community. And sure enough, while Zesima kept training, the account gathered a reputation of ignoring other players. Rab had burnt out quickly on his modcoy. Maybe it was starting to happen to Zed as well. It's kind of funny to think that Zesima's stoic legacy might just be the result of a disgruntled employee who was getting tired of the game. 2008 was something of an annus horribilis for Jagex. While they were gearing up for summoning, the community had faced immense hardship over the removal of free trade and the wilderness. Players were leaving in droves over it, and activity on RuneScape was dropping hard. Jagex knew they needed to do everything they could to stop bleeding players, even if it meant pulling a drastic stunt. Mere weeks after the wilderness was removed, Zesima announced his retirement alongside the release of the summoning skill. The king was leaving an empty throne. Not only was rank 1 summoning up for grabs, but rank 1 overall. If Zesima had been your only deterrent to going for stardom, you were now free to go buck wild. On his YouTube channel, Zesima had claimed the game had been made too easy. But in reality, a rapidly burning out Zed was probably rejoicing that he could rest. And you know what? The stunt worked. While the game had lost thousands of players, the high scores were booming. A wild west of dedicated players all fighting for the top. New players checking out the game wouldn't be faced with the doom and gloom of RuneScape dying. They would see an active boom among the best of the best. Zesima's domination had seen a return of the unchallenged days of 2003. His departure? Well, things hadn't been so lively since he first joined the scene. And for a full 5 years, Zesima was gone. In 2010, then CEO ModMark Gerhard made a conscious shift in policy to make JMods more visible. More forum activity, more YouTube activity, and more down and dirty partying with the players. No, really, the first RuneFest was in 2010, intended to be an event for players to interact with the RuneScape teams on their own level. As Zesima winded down, Zed became more public. That is, until everyone's favorite update, the evolution of combat. Jagex's overhaul of the entire combat system was universally loved and did not lead to them losing any players at all. Definitely not. Don't look at that graph. Okay, fine. It was a disaster that decimated player activity and resulted in the calls for an older version of the game to be released. It's a story most players know very well. Jagex initially rejected the idea, but came around to it, and a public vote showed massive support for the idea. So, Old School RuneScape was born. Old School was so successful, in fact, that it would see more active players than the main game as early as 2015, a feat that is now commonplace today. And then, Zesima returned. When Zesima had quit years prior, they said it was because the game had become too easy. A problem which had only gotten worse as RuneScape grew. So you'd think Zesima would start playing Old School, right? Wrong. Zesima starts playing RuneScape 3, the latest iteration of the main game. The version of the game whose player base was declining, facing severe hardship, and needed some glimmer of hope the most. Not only that, Zesima even started streaming RS3, the legend now a walking advertisement for the version of the game that needed it most. Ever the man of mystery, Zesima kept his identity as secretive as possible even on stream. No camera, no voice, only gameplay. Even if Zesima's true identity was a huge public figure that the whole RS community would recognize, you wouldn't find out from the streams. And so, just when RS3 needed him the most, Zesima returned. Always with the perfect timing, huh? You should hopefully see the pattern by now. Zesima's return led to the RuneScape subreddit being filled with excited players, all glad to see the legend return, and even the old school subreddit made a note of it. Hey, if the greatest player of all time picked RS3 over OSRS, maybe we should check it out too. Zesima's return also saw him made a player moderator, bypassing the long process that most players have to go through. Sure, you could say this is him getting special treatment due to his legendary status, but it's another snowflake in this avalanche of coincidences. Let's go one step further. Just months after his return, Zesima was hijacked by the then popular hijacker Savaged. The video also doubles as proof that Zesima was a PMod if you needed it. Now for a different video I did some years back on account security, I spoke to a person who had located Savaged for a police report, but more relevantly for us, had a lot of information available on Zesima's hijack. You see, in 2013, Jagex had informed me personally that Zesima's account is what they call unhackable, meaning it can't be manually recovered on the website. Special treatment for a special account. Savaged had bypassed this via SIM card copying, an illegal method used to steal authenticator codes. What's very intriguing about this is that, while Zesima claims to be from the States on his YouTube channel, the SIM card for his account is tied to a UK provider. You know, the country that Jagex is based in. To top it all off, after the hijacking, Zesima remained a player moderator, even though it's a requirement for all PMod accounts to be completely secure. This would have been an easy demod for any other player, and if Zesima's modship was just a formality due to his legacy, would Jagex really let him keep it? Going forward, I can't really give any more evidence without blowing the lid off who Mod Z is. But before that, I want to cover some ground that a lot of people might already be leaving comments about. No, I'm not gonna make a coy comment about subscribing while they're down there. We're making a very serious video today. See, we've supposedly seen Zesima already. In the 2016 RuneScape documentary blah 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 Man of Mystery, we don't get to see his whole face. Now, a few people have already floated around a conspiracy theory that this isn't actually Zesima. And, believe it or not, I think they're right. The only defining feature we see of Zesima is his jaw. His majestic, clean-shaven jaw. Now, it's not much to go on, but the dimples and lips give the game away here, since they share a striking similarity with another famous player, Drumgun. You'll also notice that Drumgun's golden gnome is the exact same model as Zesima's. This is a useful observation since Jagex uses different bases for the gnome each year. And wouldn't you know, it's the 2014 model, the year that Drumgun won his, and the year after Zesima won one. Take a look at them. You're not going to mistake one for the other. Now, obviously, the jaw kinda looks like someone else isn't great evidence. You could try and match a lot of people to the jaw. Go ahead, play around, I'll wait. But here's the kicker. Drumgun was forced to sign a very strict NDA for their involvement in the documentary. You know who else was in that documentary? Me. And I didn't have to sign anything about it. So what secret was so important that Drumgun had to sign some legal documents to cover it up? Okay, enough of that. Sure, it's a neat theory, but just because some dates work out doesn't mean it's evidence. I mean, the age of Miss America correlates with murders by steam, hot vapors, and hot objects. Correlation doesn't prove anything, but obviously, I didn't come up with this idea because I sat down and analyzed the dates. I was tipped off by a conversation I had with Zed himself. So, who is the man behind the mask? Well, it's someone you probably know already. Someone you probably know well. A certain someone by the name of...
Let's all say hello to the team, alright? Hello!
That's right. Zed is ModMark. Rewind time! After the rap interview, I made contact with ModMark through Twitter. As the only remaining JMod who was part of the initial ModCoy run, I thought he might be able to give us some more information. Well, ModMark replied, and explained that 2003 was a long time ago, so he only vaguely remembered the concept. However, despite this, he also said it wasn't something that he felt comfortable talking about. Odd. I mean, the cat was already out of the bag thanks to Rab. What's more, Mark had no issue sharing older information for my historical timeline in 2018. So why would this be any different? Unless there was something important that he still needed to cover up. At this point, I felt something was up. So I started digging through his Twitter. And wouldn't you know it, I found something. In the tweet related to the anniversary Q&A from January 2021, Mark claims he remembers grinding Slayer back in the days. In the stream the comment is connected to, Mark has this to say.
Hello, I'm ModMark. Started the company, I didn't start the company.
Started the company.
In 2003. I'd played RuneScape for a little bit before then.
Considering Mark started in February 2003, this would suggest he was an active RuneScape player from at least in late 2002, if not earlier. Which high-profile name do they match? Let alone one we know grinded a lot of Slayer. And that's not all. If you check the dates over Zesima's timeline, they inversely correlate with ModMark. When Zesima goes hard, ModMark vanishes. When Zesima stops, ModMark doubles down. You can see this as recent as 2019. Zesima becomes the victim of a login bug, one which can only be fixed by changing your login to use an email instead of a username. Despite this solution, Zesima refuses to do it. Good old badass Zes, refusing to log in unless it's with his name, even if it means he can't log in.
Anyway, this seems to happen just around the same time that Mod Osborne replaces ModMark in the behind-the-scenes videos on the RuneScape YouTube channel. A weird coincidence where both disappear from public view. It wasn't until just before the 2021 anniversary event that the bug is fixed. An event that ModMark spent a lot of time preparing for. And an event that gives another chance for people to talk about the legendary Zesima. Zesima is the only original modcoy that is still active, and ModMark is the only mod from the original crew who is still around. If it's a match, it has to be this one. And trust me, the coincidences don't stop there. There are a number of smaller indicators of Mark's and Zesima's close matching relationship, such as both of them preferring the color yellow.
I'm Mark Ogilvie, in-game you'll know me as ModMark, and I'm the lead designer of RuneScape, and my favourite colour is definitely yellow.
Despite the color being the least popular color in the world. ModMark keeps referring to Zesima out of context on social media and keeps claiming that he constantly talks to him. Zesima also spends a lot of time in ModMark's friends chat, and they even share some similar typing patterns. During RuneFest 2018, the live orchestra performance contains dialogue written by ModMark and also includes Zesima. Even in the RuneScape novels released in 2008, after Zesima publicly announced their hiatus, there is a quote from Zesima which was added by ModMark. Am I the only one getting some Peter Parker vibes here? Once things started clicking, I couldn't leave the theory alone. I started being more confrontational with my sources to see if I could get anyone to slip. It wasn't about finding more evidence. It was about trying to find an inconsistency in the cover-up. I reached out to the only Gower I had available to me, Paul Gower, and aired the theory alongside some other questions related to videos I've already uploaded. Surprisingly enough, Paul seems to outright ignore the question. Not even a no. So it was time to be a little cheeky and do what journalists do best. Lie. Through Jagex.com, there is a special email available for press inquiries. Jagex have, in the past, answered the press on questions related to the game's history, and I figured that if I seemed legit enough, Jagex might reply. I decided to pose as a journalist from the Norwegian gaming newspaper Pressfire and raised the theory, claiming the idea came from a previous Jagex employee, and that the newspaper wanted to check the credibility of the theory. And then, silence. To be honest, I started to give up on the theory. I'd found the mountain of stuff I've shown already, but without anything concrete to tie it together, this video would feel like a waste. That is, until last Monday, when I was editing my video on the party hat duplication. A response from Jagex's press email. They'd answered, and here's what they had to say.
Thank you for your inquiry. Unfortunately, we cannot discuss any of our previous marketing methods with the press as per company policy. However, we can confirm that we do not currently create new accounts for the sole purpose of publicity. Please don't hesitate to get in touch if you have any other questions.
Currently, eh? Either way, we're not getting to get 100% confirmation without a huge change in heart from Jagex. Whether Zezma is or is not the last remaining modcoy is up for you to decide. RuneScape's most mysterious player has been an unknown for many years now, with little to no hints on their true identity. But hey, you know what they say, sometimes the best place to hide something is in plain sight. Thank you all so much for joining me on this adventure today. I'll be back again next week with another exciting look into RuneScape's history and its hidden secrets. And with that, my name is Will Missit and I'll see you all later.